Hello and welcome to the SCLD podcast. I'm Erin Dodge here with the Spokane County Library District, and today I'm talking to Stacy Goddard, who works at the library and has sort of a special focus for her team. So Stacy,
That's true.
Tell us about that focus.
Sure, Erin. Thank you for having me today. I'm a public services manager, and I oversee, my team's focus is career support, career development, business support, and financial literacy. So we've got a few things under our umbrella. And I think we're going to maybe talk about career development
Today we're talking about career development for sure. And it's interesting, when we were kind of coming up with this idea of like, hey, we should do a podcast about this, we were talking a little bit about, you know, the pandemic has sort of changed the world of work.
It did.
And people working from home and people kind of deciding like, hey, maybe the job I had isn't the job for me. Maybe I need a new career.
Exactly.
So how can the library help if somebody's in that situation?
That's a great question. So as you said, during the pandemic, I think people realized that what they'd been doing to make a living wasn't really their passion anymore, or it wasn't worth them still continuing to try to deal with working in person during a pandemic with health risks and keeping track of, keeping their families safe and everything. So the library can help with a number of resources. We've got several digital resources. The first thing that I would recommend if someone's thinking about changing careers is looking at taking an assessment online. Okay. And some of us may remember career assessments during high school. And granted, I went to high school about 35 years ago now at this point, so how it worked in the 80s is very different, I'm sure, from now.
And I was in the 90s, so I think it's even different from then.
And I just remember taking an assessment, or kind of likes and dislikes, but it was pretty short and it was very vague, and like the questions seemed weird to me, and when I took it and got the results, it said, oh, you would be really great as a florist. And
that makes total sense.
Really? I kill every plant I get. And
I am not really good with plants, but I did work at a florist for a few years. But I was the delivery person.
Oh, that's amazing. I love
I'm
that.
a good driver, not necessarily good with plants and stuff. So anyway.
That is amazing. And so I just thought, I'm not going to be a florist. I guess I'll graduate from high school. I'll start taking some college classes, and I'll hope that something inspirational strikes. But things have come a long way in the last couple of decades, and there are some great tools online and in person if you want to do it old school.
Yeah, I feel like I took some assessments online recently, even though I'm in a career that I love. It basically told me that I'm in the career that I love, so that was good.
Good to get that validation and confirmation.
It was pretty validating. It was like, oh, hey, the job that I have, that's a strong match, or a very strong match. I was like, well, perfect. But I also, like you, didn't know what I wanted to do, and when I'm going to college and I'll figure it out. And I was undeclared for a few years, and I switched my major probably about 6 or 7 times. So I like this idea, like someone could be my age, or our age, or any age, and from the pandemic go, hey, I want to switch careers. But you could also just be, starting high school or starting college and not know exactly what you want to do.
Right.
And these resources can help you.
They can. And should we talk about our online resources
Let's talk
a bit?
Yeah, we have a whole digital library, and we have resources for, getting a job and finding a career.
And I think you've mentioned before, we have so many resources, dozens and dozens, and it can be overwhelming when you go to the page. Fortunately, we've got like a little drop-down menu filter.
Yes.
So when you're looking for these resources, I would suggest selecting job
and career.
Job and career. Thank you. I should remember exactly what it is.
It's alphabetical, so just go down to J.
Perfect. And then it'll narrow the field down to these specific resources. One that I really like to recommend to people is it's called Job Now.
Yes.
And it's our companion product to Help Now, which is our homework help, and it's provided by a company called BrainFuse. They have just a myriad of resources for job seekers, including a place where you can upload your resume and all sorts of great resources, but they have a whole category of assessments that you can take online. The interesting thing to me is that a lot of these assessment tools funnel everyone to a site that we really enjoy working with called ONET.
Yeah.
And it's just O space NET or O asterisk NET or something like that. So it's like occupational net. And they've got all this information from the Bureau of Labor, and just lots. You can do a super deep dive on something, but it will give you a number of different assessment options that you can take. And really what an assessment does is look at what you're skilled at doing, what you're interested in doing,
Right.
like what your ideal work environment is. Like a friend of mine, she wants to be outside, even if
Yes.
it's the winter time. Like park ranger or whatever.
I was like, the park ranger came to mind.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And then I am not a person that can be outside in the sun, so like I knew early on, like I need to have a job that's inside. Hopefully not just sitting at a desk all the time.
Sure.
And some people are better with maybe like my brother. I joke he's really great with math and science.
Okay.
But he's very quiet and he's kind of an introvert, so not
Sure.
as outgoing as I am.
So he
Shocking
wouldn't-
that I'm outgoing and
So
chatty.
he wouldn't
and-
necessarily be working at a retail shop or something where you've got a lot of interaction with people.
Right.
That wouldn't be an interest that aligns with him.
Right.
So, yeah.
And whereas I'm like, please don't make me do math. There's not a lot of math required in my job, thank goodness, because I would be not very happy. But he really loves data, and
Yeah.
I like data too, but he loves it. And I'm sorry, I have a lozenge in my mouth. So it kind of helps identify through a series of questions, like what are your likes and dislikes?
Yes.
Some of the assessments will actually also talk about like your core, like your values and beliefs and what's
Okay.
important to you. And something that came up a lot in the pandemic is individuals were really identifying that they wanted to be doing a job that helped make a difference.
Yes.
They're not just like paper pushing, and nothing bad about people that do a lot of paperwork or have to input stuff into spreadsheets. We rely.
need that. We need people to do that work though, because
Right.
it's it keeps everything going. But yeah, some people they want to be maybe work for a nonprofit,
Right.
Or that works with homeless or animals or different.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
So these assessments will ask questions to kind of gauge what interests, what your values, what your personality, really. Some of them are, you'll take them and you'll be like, this is sort of like the Myers-Briggs, personality test maybe that we've all taken at some point in our adult life. So a lot of it is who would know that like your job satisfaction, your career satisfaction is going to depend in part on the people that you're working with, and are there shared values? Do you have shared goals? And are you in a job that like maybe you like 2/3 of what you're doing, but there's a third of it that makes it just not great.
Maybe it's time to
Exactly.
think about a shift or a switch in career.
Right. Yeah. So we've got Job Now, which is great, has these great assessments, and the information is there for you to do what you will.
Yes.
Oftentimes, like with Job Now, it'll ask you to create an account, and that's just really so that it'll save your results.
Right. I think that the other resource that we'll talk about is Peterson's Test and Career Prep.
Yes.
And they also, and it's through Gale, which Gale we have a ton of Gale resources, but they'll also ask you to create an account. And I like that. I mean, you might think, oh, what a pain. But I like it because sometimes there's 4 little assessments that you do, or however many assessments.
Right.
Maybe you only have time to do one right now, but you can come back tomorrow and it'll save that one and you can do the next one. And then at the end, when you have all your assessments, and you can start researching careers and the different subject categories. So I like that you have an account. You can take your time with it.
Yes, you don't have to start from scratch every time.
Yeah.
And I understand in this day and age, everybody's very aware of and concerned about their
Privacy
digital
and-
footprint
yes.
and managing,
Right.
how much of their information is online. I have an email account that I set up just for my,
Oh, that's smart.
just for my
Your
profiles that I
logins,
need to
yeah.
set it up for these logins, so that it's like, this is all that I do. It's not the one that I do my banking or my online shopping with, so
Right.
that I can say, yeah, this is just that one thing. So that might be an option for people that are
That's a
concerned
good
about.
idea. Yeah, you can set up an email account just for logins. That's great.
Exactly.
And they don't ask for a lot of information. I think
No.
it's like first, last name, email.
Yes, and the great thing about that with a lot of the resources too is as you're getting information, you'll oftentimes get the option to email yourself like a copy of your assessment, a PDF version of, like here are the recommendations for your career options,
Yeah,
that sort of thing.
right.
And then you've got that, you can review it later or print it out and look at it.
It's great.
Yeah.
And then there's certain the assessments. They kind of assess certain things. Like you talked about Did we mention the 6?
Oh, sure. Yeah, I can mention, and
There's
we have to
6
check my notes a little
What
bit.
are they called?
There's
categories?
6, there's 6 categories, and there are a lot of, and almost all of these assessments that we've been talking about refer to them, and I'm probably not saying it right, but the abbreviation is RIASEC, RIASEC.
Okay.
And they stand for realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional,
Okay.
and kind of where we, what our likes and dislikes, what categories are more
Sure.
important to us. And I took the one on the Peterson's website, and it showed that my results, my primary interest was social. Big surprise. Anyone who knows me knows that they can't get me to shut up. And that suggests that I do well in people, in positions where I'd be directly helping people.
Oh, nice.
So examples of careers for this interest would be like a instructor, professor, or maybe a medical assistant.
Okay.
I think librarian is in there somewhere.
Oh,
if
yeah,
you,
for
if
sure.
you look at it a little bit. But yeah, the RISEC method is also sometimes, if you want to hear a little nerdy stuff
That's
here.
fine. Yeah, let's do it.
Oftentimes, it's referred to as Holland's occupational themes, or the Holland codes.
Okay.
And these are based on theories that were developed back in the late 50s by an American psychologist named John Holland.
Okay.
And really, he and others theorized that an individual's interest levels in working with things, people, data, and ideas, coupled with their distinct personality traits, would sort them into one of those categories.
Okay. And then so realistic. So the R is realistic. So what if I have if I kind of come out realistic?
Right. That means
What does that mean?
You're a
Okay.
doer. You like working with things.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
You like working with things.
It reminds who is the
The get her done kind of.
yeah, I'm thinking of that big box home improvement store.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't remember which one it is, but you go and you buy the lumber and the tools and you make stuff.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
You're a doer.
Exactly.
Okay.
And then investigative people are thinkers, so
Okay.
they like working with things and also ideas.
So I immediately think of like, oh, investigation, police, but it could also be like research.
Sure.
And so you could be in like an educational field doing research. Or
Right, and not as
science.
directly with people.
Okay.
So you like more the things and ideas and less social.
Okay. Okay.
And then artistic are creators, and these are the terms that the psychologists came up with. I'm not inventing them myself.
Sure.
So creators like working with people and ideas.
Okay.
And then social people, like how I came out in the test, are helpers.
Okay.
And they enjoy working with people.
Okay.
Which, yeah, data is not my favorite thing. It's going to be the last
Yeah,
thing on the list.
data's on it. And again, I did these assessments, and I had like 3 that kind of rose to the top. So it's not like I am just a artistic or I am
Right.
just a realistic. It's you can have multiple sort of areas that you fall into, and that kind of, I think that gives you your mix of all the different
Exactly.
kinds of jobs that could be of interest. And then, like you said, with your values and sort of what you prefer, how you prefer to work, whether you prefer to be with people or by yourself, or
Right.
all that mixes together. So it's not you're just one of these.
Right. Yeah.
You could be 3 of these or 4 or however many.
Exactly.
All right. So where did we leave off? We
Oh,
left
so
social.
yeah. So the last 2, enterprising, and we think of those people as persuaders.
Oh.
So they like working with people
Entrepreneurs,
and with data.
startups.
So yes, that's a great example. They've got the data, and they want
Okay.
to convince you or persuade you to
Oh, okay.
support their company
Oh,
or to buy.
salespeople.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
100% believe that salespeople are enterprising persuaders.
Yeah.
Exactly.
All right.
And then last but not least is conventional, and those are the organizers. And thank goodness people there are
Organizers.
people that love to organize, so
I
they
need some
work
of
with
them.
data.
I need to work with some of those people
Exactly.
in my life.
Exactly. So one of my colleagues, I think Carly, is really an organizer. Like she gets
Yeah.
data pulled together really quickly. She's good at organizing it and finding what we need. So thank goodness, because if I was
Right.
supposed to be the organizer, things would not go as well. Things would not go as well. And then the assessments cover your interests, your values, personality, and your workplace preferences, as we've
Okay.
discussed. So it is, it's taking a lot of complicated factors and kind of
And back in our
distilling
day,
them.
they didn't have all of that. It was
Right.
sort of, I remember assessments being like, do you like to work with your hands?
Right,
From
exactly.
a scale of 1 to 5, do you like to build a birdhouse? Like, it was some very specific, would you like to play an instrument at a concert, like sort of, and
Right.
you had to like, and then like you said, you got florist. I don't remember what I got.
Yeah.
in
Yeah. I
mind,
mean, there were
but
all sorts. Somebody in our class, I think, got like undertaker, and I'm like, how did they get
how
that
did
out of?
they, yeah, like what was the one question that tipped that over to,
Yeah.
to that career?
And I mean, we need undertakers.
Of
So, but
course.
it's just not something. When you're 17, you don't think that's going to be.
We need everybody, really.
true.
I mean, that's the beauty of this. I feel like you go through the assessments and you get a lot more information now than a few decades back.
Right. The other thing I was going to mention, because we work with WorkSource a lot, Spokane WorkSource.
Yes.
They do a lot with assessments. And I was at a conference earlier in the summer, and one of the presenters said something that I really appreciated, which when you're trying to figure out what your ideal career it might be to get yourself on the career path, you're really looking for what they call the sweet spot.
Okay.
Between three things. And if people have seen Venn diagrams before, the sweet
overlapping
spot, yeah,
circles.
that's where like all three, that little bit in the middle, that's what we're aiming
Yes.
for.
Okay.
And so the three things to consider when you're looking at your career is things that you enjoy doing,
Yeah.
because we've all got things we love doing, things that you're good at doing.
Right.
And I know like I love arts and crafts, but they don't look like an
So
adult
that would be an
professional.
overlap where
Right.
you enjoy doing it, but maybe you're not as good at doing it as you need to
Right.
be to get.
Right.
Third thing is
The third thing is that it also needs to be things that people will pay you to do. So, I like my beaded bracelet example. I make them and give them as gifts, but if I had to look at that as a career, are they professionally finished? Would people pay me for them? Sometimes probably not. So that's not going to be my career, and not
Sure.
something that I'm passionate about and know that I can support myself with. So,
Although, if you were at a point where you're like, I know this is where I'm at now with how I make beaded bracelets, but I do want to make a career out of it, that's where you can look at, okay, what educational resources are there for me to get to a professional level?
Right.
What resources, what do I need to do to get to the point where I can actually create craft jewelry that is people will pay for? So, I mean, I think that, yeah, the idea of you're maybe not as good at something, but if you are super passionate about it and you could get better,
yeah,
that's a way to think about it too.
for sure. I agree. Yeah.
Not that I'm telling you to go make beaded
No.
bracelets professionally because we need you here at the library.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I think that's a better decision for everyone. One more resource real quick I want to talk about online is, and it's not one that we have, but it's available out there. It's Career One Stop. I think it's careeronestop.org.
Yes.
And this is something that WorkSource uses a lot too. They have a number of assessments, but one of the things I really like about their website is that they have lots of tailored information for people that are maybe in very different stages of their careers, or they've got some special challenges. And a couple examples would be maybe someone who's been out of the workforce for 10, 15, 20 years, raising a family,
Right.
taking care of older parents,
Yeah.
and having to explain that gap in your resume can be a challenge, and how do you get back into it. They've got some great resources on that website for individuals who may be justice involved in some way, so maybe they have a felony conviction or serve time, but that doesn't mean that you never get to do what you love again.
Right.
So this site's got some great resources for that as
And
well.
I think I remember you saying they also have that transition from maybe a military career to a civilian career can be a little tricky for some folks.
Yeah.
So they can help with that.
Yes.
And translating those military skills into civilian career skills.
Right. Yeah, no, that's a great point, especially with Fairchild here.
Yes.
That is a challenge, and that's a request that we get pretty frequently, and I know that WorkSource does as well, because what the military calls a procurement specialist,
Right.
how do you translate that into civilian jobs? So
Right.
those resources are right there as well.
Wonderful.
That's a good point.
And of course, we're a library, so we have books.
We do. We do.
And there are a lot of great ones. And you're going to talk about pretty much a classic, but that's been updated because I see 2022.
I know. These were around back when I was in school, high school in the 80s. I was shelving this book as a page back in the 80s.
I don't think I learned about this book until the 2000s. So
and
I
the whole
missed
cover was a
out.
parachute. It was like a
I
yellow.
see.
It's like a
Yeah.
tiny little colored one.
And I still haven't. I got lucky, I guess, that I found a career I love without using this book. But I talked to a friend who was a laboratory scientist who completely switched her field, and now
That's
now
amazing.
she's a writer and editor. But she also, part of that switch was she was a writer and editor for scientific
Oh,
writing
nice.
for
Right.
quite a few years.
That's great.
So sort of a, and this she said she attributed it to this book.
That is
because she went
wonderful.
through the whole process, and I don't know what it entails so much. You do.
I do.
You can
Well,
share.
you know, and I think it had been a while since I had picked this up, to be honest. And there are great chapters. I mean, there's a whole bunch of information in here about like the job, how to approach a job search, how to be successful with your resume writing, cover letters, thank you notes to interviewers when you know. Tips and tricks for interviewing, but there's a whole section in the middle of the book that's an assessment, basically.
Oh, okay.
And they reference ONET and they reference
Yes.
personality tests and
And that
all
was the
the
portion
things.
she was so excited and told me about was, you know, going through that process. And you'd shown me, she'd shown me this before we started
Yeah.
recording here, but like this flower and the petals and
Yeah, he talks about the Richard Bowles is the author and or editor, and he talks about the flower exercise, and he calls it a comprehensive self-inventory. And so there's 7 petals, so 7 topics of things that you really need to assess. And it can be, what's your purpose in life? What about the people that you're going to be working with? What sort of working conditions, like working
so
outside?
it's similar to what we were talking about earlier with the RIASEC or RIASEC, however you
Yes,
say it.
yeah.
But this breaks it down into 7 different areas. So
And even, you know, one we haven't really talked about much is, I'm pointing at this like Jeremy can get this in the shot, hopefully you can, salary.
Okay.
Because as much as we want to do our passion, we have bills to pay, we have
Of
family
course.
to support.
Yes.
So there's great information in here about like, what's your, you know, safety net? Do you have a safety net? What do you need to survive? But,
Okay.
you know, good old RISAC, there's our...
Oh, it's in there too.
Yep, it's right in here. So like all the stuff we've been talking about has been around for a really long time. But so basically, if you're willing to do the work on that self-assessment, self-inventories are not always fun. 'Cause you have to sit there
yeah.
and be introspective and think about yourself and, you know, make some hard decisions that we don't always want to think about.
Right.
But if you want to take the time to do that, that's going to really help set you on the career path that is best for you. So
Yeah. I think, you know, sort of with the self-care movement, I think self-assessment and finding your ideal career or several careers that you could pick from, it makes sense to me. I think that people are more aware now that you don't have to do something that somebody else expects you to do. You can do the thing that fits you.
exactly.
And there's a lot of options out there. There's a lot of areas that you can work in, and yeah.
Yeah, so if people out there are thinking, oh, what color is your parachute?
What
That
color
book is
is your
still
parachute?
out there. It's as relevant today as it was
Yeah.
years ago, and it's updated every year. So it's not like they just slap a new cover on it. That
Gotcha.
just has the most recent trends in employment. There's
Wonderful.
all sorts of great info in here.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and then we got some other books.
I got a
to look
couple
at.
more.
Okay.
So
What do
this one actually, this Take the Leap, Change Your Career, Change Your Life, sort of speaks to your example with your friend who was a scientist.
Yes.
So this author talks with a bunch of different, she interviews a bunch of different, Sarah Bliss is her name, a bunch of different people about who had made the decision to do some, in some cases, pretty drastic career changes. So, and I'm not going to remember all of the examples right, but like one of them maybe became, like, was a realtor and decided she wanted to be a graphic, a comic book author. You know, like
That's that's a pretty big shift.
right. And so like what, you know, or like leaving the high stress world of being an investment banker or something and deciding you're going to be a yoga instructor.
Right.
And, you know, talking with them about like, what did your family say about this? What kind of support, how did you break into comic book writing? You know, as it was a woman in here, and that's not really, you know, that's a predominantly male field still.
Yes.
So talking about some of the biases and challenges she had to overcome to get in there. So lots of really great ones that are really kind of career focused.
Hold it up one more time. So
Sure.
Take the Leap. by
Change your career, change your life.
by Sarah Bliss. That sounds fascinating. So I mean, you could just read this just for pleasure too.
You could. Well, and you could read this and go, yeah, no, no, it's going to be too hard.
I see right here on the back.
Yep.
Getting paid to travel. Oh my gosh, I need it.
Inventing
Maybe I
the
do need to
next
think
big
about my
thing.
next career.
Yeah, being your own boss. Lots of really great stuff here.
I'm in on being my own boss. I don't know.
Oh, I had it wrong. The real estate agent transitioned to becoming a chef, not just a chef, but an
Oh.
award-winning chef. So,
Ooh.
yeah,
Okay.
that would be That would be
And now
pretty
I have these books, but I don't know anything about them. You
That's
do.
okay. Well, no, they're just a couple of others that are kind of when you're talking about looking at a career change. So
And it says U-turn, get unstuck.
YOU.
Yeah. Get unstuck, discover your direction, design your dream career. So,
Right. So the point with these is that we just, and the other one that you've got there called When to Jump, is just we've got, if you're thinking about making a career change or you're not happy with your job, just know that the library has a lot of resources, both online and
I feel
print.
like this, I just opened up to this little like assessment where you can talk about it's the money mindset overview. So what is your mindset about money? Like what's your relationship with money and how important is financial success for you in your career?
Right.
So I mean that's interesting. You can take a photocopy of this page and then like do the little worksheet and
Exactly.
work on it.
Yeah.
All
And I
right.
think several of these titles we also have in digital format, so
Okay.
ebook or audiobook. So
Okay, and this is When to Jump. If the job you have isn't the life you want. Oh, interesting.
yeah.
Okay. So again, just lots of different resources, lots of different books. Very cool.
Yeah, and I think it's a different time now, and I just think growing up, and my dad, did he stick in this job that he had? What, he worked 40 years in a factory, and like, was it his dream job? Probably not.
Sure.
But it was a good job with benefits, and it supported his family. And
Right.
that's not something that my parents thought about at all. They're just like, this is my job, and I'm doing it until I retire.
Right.
But we don't have to be stuck with those decisions now. So.
Yeah. Well, this has been great. We have books, we have digital resources. If you're thinking about a career change or you're thinking about what do I want to do with my life, even if it's, you're new to the career field or you've been having several careers over your lifetime. So
Exactly.
library's here to help. Oh, that reminds me.
Yes.
Say I try to work on things in the digital library, but I'm a little stuck. How can the library help
Oh
me
my
with
gosh, it sounds like you're talking about a book a librarian appointment,
that?
Erin. You're so funny. No, that's great. Yes, just with everything else, we want to help you find what you're looking for. We want you to help you use the resources to their fullest extent. So I would encourage you to, you can request a book a librarian appointment on our website. You can talk to any of our staff in any library. And usually we can get you started on things, but if you want a more in-depth overview or tutorial, we can set up an appointment
Yeah.
at any time that's convenient for you, and we're happy to do that.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And so again, back to our website. So you can find our resources for jobs and careers at www.scld.org/career. And then the Book a Librarian, if you go onto our website at scld.org and you click Connect,
Yes.
you'll find the Book a Librarian option. We have lots of forms of ways you can connect with the library, but you'll find the Book a Librarian form right on that page.
Yes.
So it's all available to you, and get some help at the library.
Yep, we are here ready to help.
Thank you, Stacy. This is great information,
You're welcome. Thank
and
you.
I think really useful for anybody that's kind of looking at their career and their future career, and figuring it out.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for watching today. I hope you get some help with your career at the library, and we'll see you next time.